Welcome to the Jerome McClain Show. I'm your host, Jerome McClain, and let's get into our episode.
Intelligentsia, the endem of sarcasm, the nutty professor, to your whack-ass marmalade. It's T-Bone from T-Bone and Chick Brew in the Morning. Now available in podcast format. Simply search for the T-Bone and Chick Brew podcast, available wherever fine podcasts are sold.
Welcome to the Jerome McClain Show. I'm your host, Jerome McClain, independent media that will reinforce journalism. We have one planet, nobody is leaving, and let us reason together. If you want to engage in politics, Republican or Democrats, you have to learn how to call balls and stripes. Let's get into the episode.
So the last time we talked about Nick Fuentes, we had him explaining how Trump is completely and utterly fucked, how he boxed himself in a corner, there's no way out, and functionally his presidency is over. It's done. MAGA is cooked. Well, now we have Nick Fuentes, and he's going to basically say how turns out liberals were right. Now, I remember a video he did, a segment he did a while ago, where I think he quite literally said the words, I'm not like one of these Kyle Kalinske guys who says like, oh, Donald Trump is dumb, he's so stupid. I'm not one of those like Kyle Kalinske guys who says, or Stephen Colbert who says stuff like that. So in other words, oh, it's, that's unserious commentary. That's like lowbrow commentary for you to say Trump is dumb. Well, now here we are, maybe a year or so later, if that, and listen to what Nick is saying now.
Trump is just dumb. Liberals were right. He's just dumb. And I have heard this firsthand from people that I know that have met with him recently, and they all convey the same thing, which is he is just stupid and old. He just doesn't know what's going on. Like, I can't really repeat all the details of these conversations. I can't get too specific, but it's not like a gimmick. He's not trying to be cute. He's not trying to be funny. He is mentally deteriorating. If he was ever smart, he isn't anymore. This is a 100-year-old man that's in control of the country, and no one can tell him no. So I said this on Alex Jones last year. I said, we're just stuck. We're just stuck with this guy. Everybody voted for this asshole, and now we're stuck with him for the next 4 years, and he is going to ruin everything. He is sucking all the oxygen out of the room. He is preventing any real right-wing energy from being incubated during this period.
See, that's where you fucked up, Nick. No, this is the right-wing energy. They will never come to the full realization that this simply is right-wing politics. Right-wing politics always ends in self-dealing and corruption and grifting and warmongering. Like, the whole point of right-wing politics is to suck off the billionaires and suck off the warmongers and be a fascist. And that's what we're witnessing here. He's self-dealing and sucking off the billionaires, the Epstein class. And he is a warmonger and he is a fascist. Like, what right-wing energy could you meet? Like, oh, if only we had somebody who was actually cracking down on immigration. Oh, you mean like they literally are right in front of our eyes? I just covered on the show the other day. I covered on the show the other day that there's been 100,000 instances of family separation where they separate the kids from their parents. That, like, we're looking at, they're building concentration camps and shit. They built Alligator Alcatraz. We're missing 4,000 immigrants. They rounded up a bunch of innocent people and sent them with no due process. Look at what's happening outside Delaney Hall in New Jersey right now. Like, you got your wish. And guess what? The country didn't get better. It turns out when you do a massive police state crackdown on immigrants and you get rid of due process and you get rid of habeas corpus and you get rid of the Constitution and you get rid of the need for a warrant to execute these things, turns out people's lives don't improve. Turns out grocery prices are going up and gas prices are going up and inflation's going up and employment's going up and the economy's barbecue chicken. And if you do a massive crackdown on immigrants, not only does it not help your average person, it actually makes it worse. And it turns out immigrants are in the same boat as the rest of us. Wow, what a surprise. So this is the fundamental cope of Nick Fuentes, is that it's the classic, like, the no true Scotsman fallacy. Oh, well, this isn't actual right-wing politics. This isn't actual right-wing energy. Or maybe it's the perfect right-wing energy. Just like George H.W. Bush was, just like Donald Trump is, they all end up becoming the same functionally. and it's super serving the billionaires, becoming massive warmongers, right? Doing fascist policies where they try to control people's lives and go after minority communities. Turns out none of that will improve your life. The only thing that will improve your life is leftist politics. The only thing that will improve your life is raising the minimum wage, giving people the ability to join a union, giving paid vacation time by law, giving universal health care and universal college, right? Having a society that actually gives a shit about people and looks after them, that wants to make sure people don't go homeless, that make sure people want to have a roof over their head, that make sure people can have a meal in their belly, right? Like, this is what good politics is. It's a system that actually allows you to have fundamental personal freedom in an individual sense, in an interpersonal sense, but gives you a financial and economic social safety net where the low is not that low and you're going to be okay and we're going to look out for each other. It's an actual sense of community. That crazy thing. You don't get that from right-wing politics. Nobody gets that from right-wing politics. What you get from right-wing politics is hatred. What you get from right-wing politics is division. You get divide and conquer. You get, oh, blame these brown people. Blame these trans people. That's what you get. Oh, you're mad, blame them. Right? It's not about community. It never has anything to do with community. It has nothing to do with actually fixing problems, as we're witnessing right now. And so that's where you fucked up. Is trying to pretend like, oh, this isn't true right-wing energy. No, it is. This is right-wing energy. This is right-wing politics. This is what it fucking looks like. And if you want to know what left-wing politics looks like, for example, you can take a look at the Scandinavian countries where they have a higher standard of living. They self-report being way happier. They have free healthcare and free college. They have almost universal across-the-board unions in some of those Scandinavian countries. And wages are higher, people are happier, and it's just better. It's just a better system, right? So we have real-world examples we can point to of shit that works. You guys have what? A bunch of fucking dictators and a bunch of psychotic, self-dealing, corrupt madmen? Congratulations on that.
And we're just stuck. We just have to deal with the consequences and try to find a way to pick up the pieces in a couple of years when the Republican primary starts, but it's pretty grim. There just simply is no plan. And what you're hearing is these, like, secondhand stories from people like Tucker Carlson and others, and they just talk about, you know, all we can really do is speculate what is going through his head based on conversations that these people are having with him. And nobody knows. And you just want to say, what is going on in the country? First, it was Joe Biden. That was bad enough. We had Joe Biden for 4 years. And honestly, the difference is at least we knew he was demented. That's the difference. And it's a sad state of affairs when you say that we have two senile, demented presidents. They're both retarded. They're both wrecking the country. But you say the silver lining of one of them is that at least we knew it. At least everyone knew. I shouldn't even say that. That's actually the sad part. For 4 years, the Democrats were telling us, no, he's good. He's fine. Oh, that's all Joe Biden. Remember when Jim Carrey?
He says that, but what ended up happening? Oh, that's right. The Democrats ended up replacing Joe Biden. Funny, I don't see that happening with Trump. In fact, I see the cult is culting, and I see everybody around him is protecting him, including when he's literally in the Epstein files with a nipple torture kink of underage girls. So your false equivalence is exactly that. It's a false equivalence. Because the Democrats, when push came to shove, they were like, you know what, son, you actually got to move the fuck on. I can't see the Republicans ever doing that, ever. The fact that they haven't broken with him yet is the most embarrassing thing I've ever seen in politics. Way more embarrassing than what happened with Joe Biden.
Was playing him on Saturday Night Live, and they were portraying him like he was Tom Cruise. Jim Carrey was wearing the sunglasses and doing the finger guns. And liberals, this was serious, like 1984 level propaganda. They were trying to convince themselves that Joe Biden was like some kind of Tom Cruise, all-American maverick figure. It's like, look at his gait. Look at the way he walks. He's going to die. So we had that for 4 years. Half the country was deluded about all of it. And then the other half of the country was talking about him shitting his pants and farting every day. That's your country. Half the country is masked up, triple vaccinated, kneeling for BLM. Other half of the country is making diaper farted. Biden shit his pants. So we live in hell. And then now it's like the roles are reversed. Now Trump is falling asleep, complete fucking idiot. Each person in the cabinet is dumber than the next. Kristi Noem and Pete Hegseth and Susie Wiles and J.D. Vance. It's just Kash Patel. It's just a clown car of one sycophantic moron, dumber than the last, and then the king doofus is sitting on the top.
Well, what I would say to Nick Fuentes is Joe Biden, despite all of his many flaws, at least we pulled out of Afghanistan. At least we got a $15 minimum wage for federal contractors, right? Helped 400,000 people. At least he increased Social Security payments. At least he raised overtime pay. At least he did project labor agreements for construction workers. At least we created 775,000 manufacturing jobs with the CHIPS Act and the infrastructure bill. At least he had a pro-labor NLRB and didn't stab organized labor in the back and lower wages like Trump did. At least we had a good CFPB instead of Trump and Elon, who destroyed the CFPB and said, hey, if you get fucked over by a financial institution, you can fucking deal with it. At least Biden cracked down on wealthy tax cheats. At least he wasn't in the Epstein files with the nipple torture kink and with the Katie Johnson story, right? At least that. At least he didn't start up. In fact, he told Netanyahu to fuck off and kick rocks when Netanyahu tried to get Biden to wage an illegal war against Iran. He drew a line. He said, I'm not doing that. You know who else said that? Obama said that too. So by your own fucking standards when it comes to foreign policy, any Democratic president is preferable to any fucking Republican. And you know that. And you fucking know that. Oh, man, the false equivalent stuff. I just can't with that shit anymore. I just fucking can't with it. And you'll have these big, I'm a right-winger, but I criticize Trump all the time, bro. I'm a real tough guy. But I'll also do some bullshit false equivalents and act like, yeah, both parties are, like, equally bad, bro. Oh, really? Was Kamala Harris the one who was massacring 200 innocent people in the fucking Pacific and the Caribbean, bombing dinghy fishing boats as they try to get dinner? Is that what was happening? Was that Kamala Harris doing that? Was it Kamala Harris who came up with the fucking crypto scam coin and pulling a con on her own supporters? Was that Kamala Harris who did that? Is it Kamala Harris who engaged in the most brazen corruption we've ever seen, where trying to pay herself with fucking U.S. tax money? Remember this? Trump basically taking $10 billion of U.S. tax money for his board of peace that he fucking made up, which all went into a slush fund that only he controls. Did Kamala Harris do that? Will she ever do that in a million fucking years? I don't think so. I don't think she would. So I can't stand the false equivalence. But he is correct to say that liberals were right, and he is correct to say that Trump is just dumb. Sometimes a cigar is just a cigar. Sometimes Occam's razor, the most straightforward, direct answer, truly is the correct thing. When you look at Trump, you go, that guy's a fucking idiot. And you know why people think that? Because he's a fucking idiot. And there's no other way to describe him. Hey, y'all, do me a...
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Has anybody ever told you you were over-opinionated? How about this one? You can talk about everything you like, but don't talk about religion. Don't talk about faith. Don't talk about politics. My name is Jerome McClain. Host of Jerome McClain Show, and I want to introduce you to a show called Over Opinionated with my friend from Southwest Virginia, Josh Scott. Josh has always been told he has been over-opinionated. He always tried to hold back these opinions, but he tried to back them up when he had to say something with facts and logic. Since he's grown up in many ways, he had to change a lot of his views and his opinions, as a lot of people should. He's not a millionaire from Fox News or CNN. He's just a hard-working, blue-collar type of guy. Give Josh Scott a shot at Over Opinionated with Josh Scott. You can find him on patreon.com/overopinionated at 679. You can also check him out on Twitter at NRV_guy79. Overopinionated with Josh Scott, where he is this soft-spoken guy telling you the truth. We talk about a lot of serious topics on this show. One very serious topic is women's health. One company that stood out to me was vslay.com, because the owner is very transparent about her own struggles in the women's health department and has great customer service, great deals, and frequent sales. You can check her out, her great customer service, products about women's health, and frequent sales at www.vslay.com. That is www.vslay.com.
Well, boy, that was Cal Koletsky, of course. If you want to know who it is, he was dropping some major truth bombs there.
Favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know.
Now the funny thing is, I always tell people, the hardest thing about politics is you got to be able to call balls and stripes. You got to be able to call balls and stripes. And I'm actually thoroughly convinced, excuse me, that that's a major problem in the country. The major problem in the country, as I see it, is people pick teams. Once you're on a team, you can't be honest. You want your team to win. I was talking to Josh Scott from Over Opinionated, sister podcast, because I saw you posted a meme about something. It was actually from the Babylon Bee, much bigger show, the meme page, and they said something about Donald Trump had a UFC fight, and Joe Biden said something about trans, whatever. You know that whole gimmick of every time anything happens in the world, right wingers are obsessed with trans people because that's their new kicking toy. When I was growing up, it was the gay panic. The gay people are in the Boy Scouts now. Oh God, what are they going to do with your children? Meanwhile, the people that were doing stuff with the children were a bunch of billionaires, and the Republican Party, who was supposed to be the serious people who protect the children, are doing every single thing they can to cover up the scandal. So, sorry, but I do not take this seriously. I just can't. I have been around too long to see anytime there's a moral panic going on, I know exactly who's doing it. I know exactly what they're going to say. The talking points never change. The only thing that happens is the group that they are beating up. That is what changes. And they don't understand a very simple concept that their theology, whatever, is being affected by their politics. So this is what I said to Josh Scott from Over Opinionated, and I'm saying this not to him at large. I'm saying this to the entire country. I'm saying this to the Babylon Bee, etc. Your theology is supposed to affect your sociology, etc. Or your theology is supposed to affect your politics. Your theology is supposed to affect your riches, your economics, etc. What actually ends up happening is your economics affects your theology, your sociology affects your theology, and your politics affects your theology. And when we switch those two, it becomes very dangerous. Now, of course, when this is happening, it's not done on purpose. The people are genuinely, they have an issue that they may be worried about. And that's the problem. That they cannot recognize the fact that one belief system, one core belief, one core value is affecting and manipulating the other core value. When me and Josh talked about it this morning, good friend, great God-fearing man, a soft-spoken, great guy, I told him I think his politics is affecting his theology, when it should be his theology should be affecting his politics. And then I gave him one example, and he may respond. Haven't seen it yet. I'll check later. But I had told him something as simple as, is pride a sin? Now that's an easy one, because everybody knows that Lucifer fell because of pride. So I said, if the answer is yes, why don't I see meme after meme? And when I said meme after meme, I meant meme after meme from conservatives mocking Donald Trump for being prideful and arrogant. Because they only seem to be worried about pride when it is Gay Pride Month. To me, that is not morally serious, nor is it morally consistent. And anybody that knows me knows my form of theology, the hermeneutics that I think about, the pride I try to practice, the praxis that I try to do, the synthesis when I try to synthesize the text, the systematic theology that I practice is moral theology. And in order for me to be a serious moral theologian, I have to be consistent. I have to wrestle with what is true. And how do I wrestle with what is true? I allow what is suffering to speak. So the second I see somebody picking a team and demonizing a team, I know that is something morally unserious. I will not be involved. I'll stand there as a preparer and a preparer of the breach. But I will not engage. I cannot engage. I will not pick sides. I reject terms like conservative church or liberal church. I think those are examples of politics affecting theology. So here I stand, I could do no other. God help me. One example where this came into discussion was a few years ago on C-SPAN. And it was with Bishop Noel Jones and Dr. Jeremiah Wright. Now, this was years ago. And it's a panel discussion done by Taft Smiley, and they talk about this issue. Now, the tension in this issue was the fact that Dr. Reverend Jeremiah Wright is just what you heard, doctor, which means he was seminary trained. And Noel Jones is Pentecostal, not seminary trained. But he definitely has the gift of spirits. He's also a oneness Pentecostal, which is a whole nother bag that we have to open theologically. Very, very complicated. Let's just say that people who are the oneness Pentecostals are the Pentecostals who deny the Trinity. That's basically as easy as I can say. They say they believe God is one, and Noel Jones has always been open about the fact that he is a oneness Pentecostal. But in this thing, watch when it happens when seminary trained Dr. Jeremiah Wright talks to oneness Pentecostal Noel Jones. This is how complicated this stuff gets.
Jeremiah Wright, let's take this a step further, if we might, sir, and ask you to comment on that same question. What is it about so many African American preachers that allows them to come to church every Sunday morning and to preach until we shout, and the choir sings until we shout, but Monday through Saturday they ain't got no programs, no services, nothing serving African American people? What is it about that? I mean, I can't imagine. King was a brilliant man, but I can't imagine that he was so bright that he understood how important that intersection is, and that so many are missing that today. What's wrong?
Tavis, I want to join with other panelists in thanking you for assembling this group of persons. I don't control the mic. I'm sorry.
They can hear you now, Doc. Go ahead.
But there's several things, and I was hoping Dr. Taylor, as the senior statesman on the panel, would say something about this, because he was a contemporary of Dr. King's. But he's being kind. The main issue we have not done, Cornel West always says we don't define terms, so we talk all around stuff. We haven't defined what the black church is. Now, I'm going to come back to that in a moment. But to respond to your question, Dr. King was not popular among African Americans until after he was dead. All right? Dr. King headed the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. And to us up north, that was their problem. In Chicago, Philadelphia, New York, the following was not large. It was not large, and in Chicago, the following was anti-King. Chicago was the home of Olivet Baptist Church, Joseph H. Jackson, who sided with Mayor Daley. They did not want King, they didn't want Jesse, so he didn't have no following until after years. Like everybody walking around a piece of wood, see this from the original cross, everybody became a King follower after he was shot and killed. And one of the problems that causes what you're asking is Dr. King was seminary trained, my brother. All right, so where you get the intersection of the social and the theological hermeneutic, 90% of African American clergy persons are not seminary trained. All right, I cannot be a lawyer if I don't go to law school. I cannot be a doctor if I don't go to med school. But all I got to do is turn around my collar and hallelujah, I got the anointing, and I got 50,000 Negroes following me. All right? So, no, it ain't what the theology of King, but then again, I mean, the theology of King, trying to answer you, that's one reason. That's one reason, all right? But to try to follow through, there's some other issues that's multi-layered in terms of the disconnect. Dr. Taylor also mentioned in the fellowship for him at Interdenominational Theological Center, which you said, Eugene, about the disconnect between Africa and African Americans. That's a long historical problem. And that goes back to the definition of the black church. When you say the black church, when we say the black church, we got to realize we're talking about a kaleidoscope of reality in terms of theology, in terms of hermeneutics, in terms of training, in terms of what has become known as denominations, in terms of what it takes to start a church, what kind of church, turn your collar around, you got a church. What do you mean the black? Because to talk about perfecting, to talk about City of Refuge, to talk about National Baptist, Progressive National Baptist, African Methodist, Episcopal, Christian Methodist, you're talking all over the map in terms of what is the black church. And there have been those different streams running through the definition historically since the 1700s and that are still there. There's also been a disconnect, as Eugene said it, between African Americans, but also between the living word that we hear on Sunday and the life we have to live on Monday. Kelly Brown Douglas says we can't talk about homosexuality because we can't talk about sexuality. So that there's that kind of perpetuated propagation of ignorance that goes on Sunday mornings that has nothing to do with the life I live on Monday morning. And it's not just in the mega churches, it's in the storefront churches that'll get me high for 2 hours, so I feel good, but then I gotta go back into hell on Monday or Sunday afternoon. So that's why King had a large following of seminary. In fact, if you look at the guys and girls he surrounded himself with, that's one type of clergy that you do not find overwhelmingly standing in the pulpits of the African American pulpits in the year 2003.
Let me. I want you to note that as I ask this next question, I'm looking this way. I'm not trying to cast aspersion on anybody on this panel or the second panel. I mean that sincerely. But I'm looking this way because I want to pick up on something that Jeremiah Wright raises without casting aspersion on anybody on this panel or the one coming behind us. But Jeremiah Wright, you raised an issue about the fact that when we called King the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., he sure enough was a Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Every black preacher I know wants to be called the Reverend Dr. So-and-so. I'm looking this way. Everybody wants to be called the Reverend Dr. So-and-so. Noel Jones, you were known as one of the foremost intellectuals in ministry in this country. Talk to me about the challenge that presents for the African American church when we have folk who are not trained in seminary, and whether or not that is, in fact, is Jeremiah right? Is that a requirement, given that so many of us believe that all you got to be is spirit-filled, and that the Lord speaks to you from on high, that's all you need on Sunday morning, Doc?
Hope it's on.
I just want to say thanks for having me here. I don't know how much gratitude I want to show right about now, but
at least they won't say I'm playing favorites with my pastor.
Nonetheless, I think it's quite significant, the point that Dr. Wright is raising, and I think it's essential that we define the 21st century church, because from what I'm hearing, it seems as if the church is actually the black preacher.
The church is the black preacher.
It's from what I'm hearing, it seems as if the church is the black preacher, because the people in the pews don't set policy. The committees are losing their strength. And if you notice carefully, what has happened is, when Pentecostalism became the leading denomination and the fastest growing denomination, it changed many dynamics in the whole traditional Christian, black African Christian world. What happens is the Pentecostals' primary objective was to think heavenward. If you were to consider the Apostolic Pentecostal in particular, you will notice that the greatest thing that a person could achieve was the new birth experience, the baptism in Jesus' name, the receiving of the Holy Spirit. Now, what happens there is that the focus immediately went to the other world, into getting into heaven. And the faith of the Pentecostal was meet God, have a spiritual experience, let's get to heaven. The traditional church, on the other hand, dealt so much with those contemporary things that were mundane to operate their lives, that there was a problem between the Pentecostals and the traditional church, particularly when the Pentecostal church literally evangelized the traditional church, because it is out of the traditional church that many people went into the Pentecostal movement, and consequently there was a rift between both groups. The neo-Pentecostals, the charismatics, and the faith preachers, they came along and took the faith to get to heaven, and then they turned it into health, wealth, and prosperity. And so all of a sudden now, we're teaching faith that was originally Hebrews chapter 10, closing faith to salvation, and it becomes a now faith, the substance of things hoped for, of course, and the now was subject to subjective theology, and it now began to deal with the issues of being rich, having money. This further divided us because now faith became an individual affair. So if you have the faith, then of course you can get whatever you want from God. So the church stopped dealing with the whole issues of suffering, because under that presentation, God will miraculously do things for you. So if you come down the aisle with $20 or $30 and I lay hands on you, then of course, immediately all of your trials will be over. Now, the thing that happens here is, because of this presentation, because every presentation needs theology to make it strong. If there's no hermeneutical substratum for this presentation, then of course now we're going to have a problem, because theology has to leave something in people's minds psychologically. And if you tell me that God is going to bless me by simply bringing something to you, and I don't have a plan, because when I'm preaching and I'm making that presentation, I have to have a plan. And the plan is, if I've got 6,000 people out there, 3,000 will give me $25. But now, what is the plan for those who brought the money? Well, now understand this, and I'm in the middle of it myself. Understand this. When people bring money based on a theology that God is supernaturally going to respond, that eliminates the development theology that is necessary to make people change their lives. And once the presentation is made, people need opportunity. Now here's where opportunity comes. Because we don't have to ask committees anymore to decide who they want to be with. And we have even eliminated using denomination as titles for our churches. We don't call our churches particularly Baptist church or apostolic church today. What we do is we give a name out there that everybody can come to that ministry and deal with that ministry, because we don't want to be slated denominationalism. We don't market denomination. We market individuals today. Wherever you go, the church is personality driven. It is not institutionally driven any longer. It's personality driven. So the wonderful thing about it, though, because it's not all pejorative, the wonderful thing about it is that you don't have to bring Baptist Methodists together. For instance, in my city, I don't have to have City of Refuge vote or decide to have anything to do with Faithful Central, vote or decide to have anything to do with West Angeles, or decide to do anything with Fame, because it's not institutionally driven. The churches don't have to come together, but Noel Jones ought to get together with Charles Blake, and Charles Blake ought to get together with Chip Murray, and Chip Murray ought to get together with Kenneth Ulmer and put all our monies in the same bank and make the opportunity for the people in our church. Because money talks in America.
I'm mad at you. Let me, Noel Jones, well, Bishop Jones, they used to call y'all, you forgive the phraseology, they used to call y'all poverty pimps, and now they call you prosperity preachers. So the vernacular has changed. I think that's a good thing, from poverty pimps to prosperity preachers. But Shakespeare asked the question, what's in a name? A rose by any other name would still smell just as sweet, whether it's poverty pimps or prosperity preachers. There are a lot of folk who think there is too much focus, too much emphasis in the black church on materialism, on money, on gain. You heard what James Cone said earlier. Talk to me about that. And I raised that question only because I want to expand this conversation to talk about this phenomenon called the mega church. It seems to me, as one on the outside looking in, that one of the reasons why the mega church is such a phenomenon now is that we got people preaching every Sunday, that if you do this, if you do that, if you give me this, if you do this, you can have all of this. So it's that prosperity message that I think is packing out some of these so-called mega churches. But talk to me about that, if you will.
Well, one of the things that's so wrong is that theology actually sets in the mind of people a certain psychological view of life, particularly in a church situation where there is so much influence coming from the man who is standing as the voice of God. And oftentimes it fails to deal with the real issues of suffering and the real issues of a problematic world and difficult times. This is why America had so much difficulty dealing with 9/11. And 9/11 forced so many Americans to even question the existence of God, simply because they were not prepared for the tragedy that other people of the world go through all the time. I will point out to you the significance of truth. And again, much of the problem, the prosperity preaching, and even preaching period. And I think the question has to be asked, if you can't preach it in Somalia, is it gospel? Because oftentimes we have preached Americanism for the gospel. There are no lotteries in Zimbabwe. And so you can hit it rich in America quite easily, but most of the time when people have made money and make it rich in America, there was a plan somewhere. There was a check in the mail, but the check did not come from heaven. It came from some specific place, and certain circumstances allowed that money to come that way. And oftentimes, we have made ourselves rich simply preaching this hocus pocus gospel, and we have not developed the individuals to go after the opportunities that are before them. And so consequently, we have a backlash. Because I go throughout the world and people will tell you, I gave in every offering. I did exactly what I was supposed to do. And I'm still struggling to meet my rent. I'm still having a hard time making my car payment. But the bottom line is, when you should have followed the stream of opportunities, you were out partying and doing a whole lot of stuff that you shouldn't have been doing. And one sermon is not going to change the outcome of your life. You have to sow positively, and ministry must put people in the frame of mind that moving from one stage to the other is a process. There is no quick fix to our situation. And so consequently, it allows people to feel the stimulation of discipleship. You have to be a disciple in order to move from one place to the other. Most of the fellows who made it rich in ministry are disciples of their ministry. I mean, they work on it night and day. I have 5 million miles on American Airlines alone. I lost a wife running after ministry because everybody can't sit around and have you gone all the time. Oh, I might as well be real with it. We have gone after this stuff in a way where we are driven. We are driven beyond the norm. And all of a sudden now we're presenting a gospel that is to people no discipleship. Jesus had his fellows for 3 years. We want to just wake up and get called, and then we spiritualize every text. One man said, the Lord spoke to me, so he opened his Bible and he pointed to the scripture, and it said, Judas went and hung himself. He said, well, let me try this again. He flipped it open, touched the next one, and the scripture said, go thou and do likewise. He said, but the baseball players get 3 tries. So he opened it again, he hit it again. That thou doest, do it quickly. There has to be some hermeneutics to our presentation.
But Bishop, let's be real about it. Since you said you want to be real, there isn't a lot of hermeneutics to the theology. What we get on television from these prosperity preachers, what we get in our pulpits on Sunday mornings from these prosperity preachers, is that God told me that to ask you to put $100 in the offering this morning. And that if you do that, the Lord told me to tell you.
Because people are looking for a quick fix. It's like most black people supported the 911 number with all the sorcerers and all the people who are going to read palms. That stuff was sent straight to black people. Because oftentimes we want a drug, and the church becomes a drug where we can preach, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, and people just subscribe. But that's not the way it is. You have to have discipline. You cannot overlook the principles of God and God go against his principles and make you rich. God is a God of principle. That's why medical science works. That's why aviation works. That's why you can put a boat in the ocean and it goes across the sea, because there are principles. And people want to bypass principles because they lack discipline. And the preacher wants to get rich on the ignorance of the people. You've got to turn around and tell them the truth, so that the only Bentley in the driveway is not yours. You got plenty out there.
Very frankly, and to the point, is it money well spent? There's a big debate ongoing in our community about the millions upon millions upon millions of dollars that we spend building buildings. James Cone raised this point earlier, money we spend building buildings, but a lot of folk in this audience, and I'm sure watching us around the country and around the world, who question, and I'm just asking the question here, who question whether or not it is money, Jeremiah, right? Bishop, you can get in on this in a minute. Jeremiah, if it's money well spent, as opposed to spending that money on programs and on services. We walk over homeless folk in some of these cities to get into the church. Isn't money well spent?
I must point out that you have to go back home, and your pastor said he wants to answer that. I just want to point that out. You got to go back to your pastor. And you don't care, Bishop Jones, let Jeremiah Wright answer that. You will hear from him when you get home. Paul Morton said, if we don't have no authority, then what are we leading?
I do that.
You need a disciple with some principles. You have an unprincipled disciple over here. Having said that, again, we are playing with jello and it's slippery all over the place. When you say, just picture this. Picture this as a congregation or gathering of the elders from Judaism. Hasidic Jew, Reform Jew, Conservative Jew, Jewish rabbi women. You got a multiplicity of definitions there.
Yes.
So just remember, we're all over the place. Some churches, yes, it's being spent well. Other churches, of course not. Some churches, there are no Bentleys in the driveway. But as Paul Morton said, you're doing millions in missions. Mega churches cannot have. We have been supporting a hospital in Salt Pond for 15 years. We built a computer school in Salt Pond. A small church cannot do that. We give away 1/10 of our budget. We've given over $500,000 to United Negro College Fund. We've given over $500,000 in scholarship. A small storefront cannot do that. So yes, but we ain't every church. We ain't every church because some churches have $500,000 pastor anniversary. Hallelujah. Watch out now. Watch out. But again, you're all over the place in terms of when you say, is the money being spent by the mega churches, you have to define and name what mega churches you're talking about. You have to, and that's what I would just warn. So I would say in some instances, and when you're talking about most of the time what we see on television, no, but that's not as when you say, is the money being spent by the mega churches, you have to define and name what mega churches you're talking about. You have to, and that's what I would just warn. So I would say in some instances, and when you're talking about most of the time what we see on television, no, but that's not, as Dr. Jook said, that's not all mega churches.
Jacqueline Grant, I saw your hand. I want to come to you in 1 second because I don't want to be disfellowshipped. I don't want to be disfellowshipped when I get home to Los Angeles tomorrow morning. So, Bishop Jones, by all means, please speak, sir.
Well, thank you, Tavis. I don't have any problem with you telling me to shut up. I mean, that's fine. But nevertheless, I will agree with Dr. Wright. I think it's important for us to understand that the message, one of my best friends and I argue all the time, how does God give favor? And I think the favor that God gives the preacher is the message. If he can touch the lives of people, he will never build a building big enough to house all the people who will want to hear what he has to say. There is no question in my mind. But I have never heard of the deceitfulness of poverty. I've heard of the deceitfulness of riches. And oftentimes what happens is when we get to a certain level in ministry, we no longer feel what people feel. We no longer understand what they feel. For instance, if we were having church here today in a crowd like this and I got finished preaching, they would probably surround me so fast and walk me out of here so quickly that I wouldn't have an opportunity to shake anybody's hand or touch anybody. At a certain point in ministry, we no longer counsel. So we don't talk to people, so we don't know what their problems are. At a certain point in ministry, we move to the suburbs. And we no longer feel what people feel in the inner city. At a certain point in ministry, we lack absolutely nothing. And it becomes difficult to relate again to people who are struggling. And our offering taking sometimes reflects the fact that we don't have a clue about what people can or cannot give, because we just stand up and we begin to call money. It's not that I'm saying that a preacher shouldn't have anything and a mega church shouldn't be there, because if the message is there, the church is going to be big and people are going to come and lots of money going to be distributed, and the preacher might take 1% now of what comes in as opposed to 50% when it was small. I'm not saying that that's a problem, but I'm saying that every man needs somebody to answer to. Well, as I was listening to the discourse on the other side and listening to ownership and just dealing with the issues, Dr. Elance McCarty in Los Angeles lent me a couple of tips on my way here. And he said on any given Sunday, you have approximately 65,000 African-American churches. On any given Sunday, that means you have 25 million members. On every given Monday, they put in the bank 50 million. On annually, it is 2 billion. The members spend in the American economy $300 billion. We're richer than many nations. I am saying to myself, as I thought about that, and I listened to Dr. Cohn's about us gathering together where there are no cameras, what would happen in America if all of us would forget our denominational hang-ups and decided to bank in an international bank altogether? Now, with those statistics, Dr. McCarthy still says that 70% of our churches are turned down when they go to the bank. What would happen if we leveraged that money, all came together, put in one place, used all these brilliant black minds that we have to give us direction? Because as preachers, oftentimes we are just creative in the Bible. And when it comes to preaching every Sunday, your time is spent so much in studying the Word of God and trying to deliver the Word, yet we have people in our congregations who are extremely astute at business and all kinds of other things. Why can't we humble ourselves a little bit? Let somebody put a program together. Somebody become our conscience. Bring us all together and make this thing work for all of us.
Your question was about HIV/AIDS. Right. What is the black church not doing that we should be doing? I would say two things practically. One, doing what Dr. Cohn and Dr. McKenzie said outright. I hinted at it subtly by saying, I want you to picture a Hasidic Jew, Orthodox Jew, conservative Jew, Reformed Jew. Jews would not have TV cameras present talking about the Jewish community. All right? First thing we need to be doing is what Dr. Cohn said and what Vashti said. We need to have a meeting privately to talk about among ourselves what we need to do collectively. All right? Because the same issue that keeps coming up with this anti-intellectualism, the same bifurcation between seminary and non-seminary, your theology, you love that word, but how you see God. If I see God as a male, white, long beard, then I see humans. Anthropology is determined by my theology. I see humans as male superior, white male superior, white men, white women, black men, black women, and hierarchically, my theology has messed me up. And how I see anthropology determines how I order my society. Theology determines, anthropology determines sociology, but we can't talk about that in front of cameras because a lot of folk who think being saved means I'm no longer black, we need to close the door, lock horns, and talk to one another. All right? But very practically, I have been, and I need Tom Joyner's help, and I need the media. Now that he owns his own company, maybe he can do this. We need the media, Tavis. We need the media too. You too. All right? Because you and Tavis and Tom reach 100 times more black folk than we do on Sunday morning. And they're listening to you all. All right? They're listening to you all.
Tom, we should start taking tithes and offerings in.
And here's the point. What ought the black church be doing? Well, in addition to the whole theological understanding of sin and that AIDS is a biological issue, not a theological one, all right? In addition to that, put that one aside, we need to do what we did back in the 60s. Martin asked Dr. Taylor, he's here, he was there, I was here. The sit-ins, the pray-ins, all that wonderful public demonstration did nothing to change anything. It brought public attention and the cameras, but the changes came after the sit-ins were over, after the wait-ins were over, and the pray-ins were over. We sat down with legislators to get laws changed. You're talking about public policy? All right, call it where it is. Your sermon. until Pfizer and Merck and the pharmaceuticals do here what they did in South Africa and in Brazil and allow the generic drugs, antiretroviral, everybody can afford what Magic Johnson can afford. And until we do that, we ain't done nothing about AIDS. So that's what the black church ought to be doing about AIDS.
Okay. This question says it's from a black mother. Most of our men are in prison. Most of our children are failing in school. Most of us mothers are weary of trying to fix it all. What is the black church's role in building up its families?
The black church has to hit the street. The black church has to hit the street. The reality is that young boys are being raised on the streets in the absence of responsible role models. If we've got 65,000 black churches in America, we have to ask ourselves, why is there an inverse relationship between the presence of black churches and their relative absence on the corners and streets where our children live? We've got a generation of orphans that in too many cases the black church is ignoring. So we got to move from the pulpit and the pews into the streets and advocate for the widow and the orphan.
I just needed to raise a question just so we can stay critically thinking people. If we keep hearing over and over again, is the black church healthy for black women? That black women are 60 to 70% of our congregations. They are mostly single mothers, tired, working, giving too much money. We only got 30% of the brothers there. We working them to death because they're only 30%, so they're doing everything. Who's going to hit the street, Gene? You want the women? You want these single mothers who are already tired to hit the streets? When you say the black church, we need to hit the streets, you're talking about Jackie's women. Who you talking about hitting the street? Let's be real. Let's don't do applause sound bites. Let's do something. What do we do about the church? Each church needs to do something. Hitting the streets might not necessarily be it. She got to work every day. She got choir rehearsal. She got Bible study. She ain't gonna hit no streets. She ain't got no time.
Ask Miss Dupree. Ask Miss Dupree. No. All right. No. Let me push back on that, Jeremiah. Oh, no. Listen. No, Doc. No. That's too easy. Look, there are black men in the churches. And hold up, Doc.
Your church.
No, hold up, Doc.
Let's be specific.
You know what I mean?
Your church.
No, I'm not talking about my church. No, I'm saying in black America on the planet Earth, in the hood. Hold on, Doc.
You done a survey.
I'm saying, no. Because I'm saying that if we black preachers were to choose to set more examples where we connected hips with lips and were available, just visible, Doc. I'm not saying that we gotta rub shoulders with the uncouth and the unwashed. I'm simply saying that there is more that black men in the church can do to be visible and available to that mother that ain't got that child. That's all I'm saying, Doctor.
But they ain't the ones in church.
No.
When you say the black church needs to hit the street, we still got this nebulous, what is the black church? Them brothers that made the babies, they ain't coming up to listen to you.
Which one?
They ain't in the church.
Which one?
They ain't coming to church.
No.
So they already hitting it. No. They hitting it all right. But it ain't, come on now.
No. What are you saying? I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying.
That's what I mean when I say your theology affects your political stuff. And Dr. Jeremiah Wright in that clip, that was like an hour-long panel, hours long, from 2003. Summarized exactly what I think the problem is that we have today. I think we have these problems without understanding that that is the problem. And when I synthesized it this morning, talking to Josh, from over opinionated, like I said, I told him something different but similar. And I think I'll end the show by somewhat saying, reading our back and forth And I said, culture war one-on-one keeps poor people fighting over culture, so they never get together and discuss economic issues. Josh responded and said, culture issues actually matter. That's the same talking points the socialists like to use, implying we should care about cultural issues at all. And I replied back, I'm smart enough to know when they only matter to poor people who actually believe the Bible. Rich people who don't believe the Bible or in politics toss it out to poor people because they know our instincts are to fight biblically when all they're trying to do is keep power. Politicians, in fact, are the most godless people I ever seen. To let them tell me what I should focus on is to ask myself to be a fool, and I am not interested in being anybody's dummy. Politics is the theology of the satanic. I went on to say, Josh, I'm actually worried you're obsessed with politics. You said you let your political party affect your theology. And what should be happening is your theology should be consistent, smacking your political party. Example 1 is pride is a sin. Is pride a sin? If the answer is yes, then why don't I see meme after meme about Trump being a sin? Religionists use their religion to protect political power, and the political power they protect it, and they only get religious when someone not in their camp sins. That's called hypocrisy, and that's why I say I don't take Republicans or Democratic politics seriously. The outrage is inconsistent, it is selective, and it is partisan. And so, Josh is a very intelligent person, and not flippant. I think he's gonna respond. I will let you know later date. He may respond with something very sensible about it. Oh, wait a minute. He just responded. It's real time here. Oh, okay. So if we go over to over opinionated with Josh Scott actually did an entire show on this issue. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to lead. I'm going to read this. Look at the episode. It is called "Step Away from the Phone, Mr. President." So we're going to give Josh the benefit of doing this, and I'll listen to this show today. At any rate, I'm going to play a whatever, and after hearing that voice, you can see me on the next episode.
the California Fire Response. Also, one thing that we need to do is to be able to let the Marine helicopters get out.
The whole thing is going to be so evident that all men are created.
Watching and waiting, convinced this world's never changing. Teenagers popping their pistols, killing, dealing, and stealing the joy away from their parents who brought them up to be teachers and preachers, reaching for something, coming up empty-handed. Goddamn, his family still standing, but y'all still sitting on your hands, asking when will we become free? Never, 'cause we've got bridges burning between uptown and downtown. Someone come and rescue me. She said I'm wanted, dead or alive in my hometown. Someone come and save these streets. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Steady but shaking, making mistakes on a day-by-day basis. Prideful, I stumble, I got back up and I walked as a humble man with no patience. Inside a world with no faces, nations, numbers, and colors. They wonder why all the hatred. I'm breaking barriers while some of y'all still sitting on your hands, asking when will we become free? Never, 'cause we've got bridges burning between uptown and downtown. Someone come and rescue me. She said I'm wanted, dead or alive in my hometown. Someone come and save these streets. 'Cause we've got bridges burning between uptown and downtown. Someone come and rescue me. She said I'm wanted, dead or alive in my hometown. Someone come and save these streets.
I'm gonna light one up and sit right here. I'm gonna drink this whole and love all out of me. And when that ice cold beer loses its lust, I'm gonna let that whiskey do what whiskey does. Or maybe it'll make me lose my mind. Or maybe it'll help me forget this time. Or maybe it'll put my fist through the wall. Make me pick up the phone and give you a call. Maybe it'll take me somewhere I've never been. Make the world stand still. Make the whole room spin. Maybe make me dance. Make me cry. Hell, I don't know. But I know tonight I'm gonna light one up and sit right here. I'm gonna drink this whole and love all out of me.
been selling my soul, working all day, overtime hours for bullshit pay, so I can sit out here and waste my life away, drag back home and drown my troubles away. It's a damn shame what the world's gotten to for people like me, people like you. Wish I could just wake up and it not be true, but it is. Oh, it is living in the new world with an whole soul. These rich men north of Richmond, Lord knows they all just wanna have total control. Wanna know what you think, wanna know what you do, and they don't think you know, but I know that you do. 'Cause your dollar ain't shit, and it's taxed to no end, 'cause the rich men know the rich men. I wish politicians would look out for minors, and not just minors on an island somewhere. Lord, we got folks in the street, ain't got nothing to eat, and the obese milking welfare. Well, God, if you're 5'3" and you're 300 pounds, taxes ought not to pay, so your bags of fudge round. Young men are putting themselves 6 feet in the ground, 'cause all this damn country does is keep on kicking them down. Lord, it's a damn shame what the world's gotten to for people like me, people like you. Wish I could just wake up and it not be true, but it is. Oh, it is living in the new world with an whole soul. These rich men north of Richmond, Lord knows they all just wanna have total control. Wanna know what you think, wanna know what you do, and they don't think you know, but I know that you do. 'Cause your dollar ain't shit, and it's taxed to no end, 'cause the rich men know the rich men. I've been selling my soul, working all day, overtime hours for bullshit pay.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. Of course, if you want to support the show, you can do so by going to www.patreon.com and getting a membership for as little as $3 a month. Again, that's www.patreon.com/The Jerome McClain Show. The Jerome McClain Show is fully listener-supported, independent media that won't lead you to tribalism. Get a membership and support independent media at www.patreon.com/The Jerome McClain Show.